everyone here, so we'll proceed with recording. Okay. Welcome to those in attendance at the remote meeting of the local review body of Armagh City Council. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and published online for public access after the meeting. You are reminded to note that we may have members or public and press observing today's proceedings. Can I ask those who are observing today's meeting to keep their microphones and cameras switched off throughout? Can members of the local review body leave their cameras on, mute their microphone when not speaking? As the local review body contains quasi-additional business, members are reminded that they should not leave the meeting during consideration of any of these reviews. This meeting is being convened in response to 3 requests for a review of the decision taken by the appointed officer under the Council scheme of delegation. Members of the local review body have before them copies of the review documents as listed in the notice calling the meeting. We'll now ask Mr. Masson, the Assistant Clerk, to outline the procedure to be followed in the conduct of these reviews.
Thank you, Chair. Members have the procedure note which was circulated with the meeting papers and is intended to set out the wider framework within which the review process operates. The first task for the review body is to come to a decision on whether the review documents contain sufficient information for the case to be determined without further procedure, and by that it is meant without further information or representations. The regulations governing the local review process require that all matters which the applicant intends to raise in the review must be set out in or accompany the notice of review. The focus of the review should be on the basis of what was before the appointed officer when a decision was made, and only in exceptional circumstances will new or additional matters be permitted to be taken into account. The circumstances in which additional matters can be taken into account are set out in the legislation and will be addressed by the LRB's advisors where relevant. The review should take the form of a structured discussion led by the Chair to consider the matter set out in the notice of review before you. And I would conclude by drawing your attention in particular to points 10 to 12 of the procedure note. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So turning to consideration of the first review in respect of the decision to refuse the application for the erection of 3 times dwelling houses under Class 9 with integrated garages, erection of fencing, alterations to boundary walls, car parking, hard and soft landscaping and all other associated works. This is at 86 Queen's Road, Aberdeen, AB 154YQ, planning reference 251092. We'll now hear from the Planning Office Advisor in attendance, Ms. Lucy Green, who will provide us with a brief description of the application proposal and a reminder of the reason why the application was refused. I'd like to highlight today that Ms. Green's attendance to today's meeting does provide us with a professional planning guidance because she's not been involved in the earlier consideration of the applications under review. Ms. Green will not, however, be expressing any views or merits on the proposed development, and in effect her role will be a neutral one involving the provision of factual information and guidance only. Ms. Green, over to you.
Thank you, convener, and morning members. I'll just share my presentation. So the review has been submitted with all the necessary information within the time limit, and the applicant stated on the notice of review that there are no new matters raised in the review submissions. In terms of the procedure by which the review will be conducted, the applicant has expressed the view that it may proceed without site visit. So I'll provide some background information to the cases before handing back to members to decide how to proceed. So this is the site shown here on the corner of Bayview Road and Queen's Road, and it's within the Albine Place and Rubislaw Conservation Area. And that's taken from Google Maps image there. So you can see that the site includes the driveway to Bayview and the area just here outlined in red. And this is the site plan for the proposal, which includes 3 new houses, 2 to the rear of the site and 1 here on the Queen's Road frontage. And this is a section through the site showing the existing Bayview just there in faint grey. And then this, which is referred to as the Southern Villa. Just here, you can see the bay window at the front proposed there. And the side of the house, one of the houses to the rear. I'll just mention on this that there are existing trees in this position. Can you see my cursor there? Yes. The front of the house. And then this is showing a cross section through the 2 townhouses to the rear. That's the parking down at the lowest level there. And showing the cut and fill on the site. So this is showing the areas pertaining to each of the proposed houses on the plan. And you can see that the purple area would relate to the flats within Bayview. So the yellow area would be the Southern Villa, and these are the 2 houses to the rear with the accesses being joint. And this is the front elevation of the 2 houses set to the rear. And then the west elevation of the westernmost house shown there. And the west elevation of the other house. So they're a mirror image of these images of each other. That's the car park access. So you'd have the 2 car parks accessed from this central access point. And then the land rising to the north, and there's north elevation of the 2 houses there. And these are the other side elevations, the east elevations to each house. And then a cross section through, showing the garage at the lower basement level. Cross section through the other way, across east-west across the site, or approximately east-west. Then this is the front elevation of the Southern Villa. On the, well, it's the Queen's Road elevation of Bayview, and then the proposed house would go to the side of it. And the west elevation, an enlarged version of the one that we saw before. So this is where I mentioned that there are trees in this area, the 3 mature lime trees. And the side elevation of the Southern Villa. And then you can see the rear extension to Bayview just here that's referred to in the report as well. And a cross section through the southern villa. And this is the floor plan for the southern villa, showing the lawn to the west side. And the first and second floor plans. And the various floor plans for the townhouses. So the basement level, the lower ground floor level, upper ground floor levels of the terrace to the rear, first floor, second floor. Now this slide is showing the landscape plan that was approved for the application that was submitted for the conversion of Bayview to Form 6 flats. So it's referred to in the reports, and this is the plan that was submitted for discharge of the condition of the landscape condition. You can see planting in this area. And then I've also included the wording of that condition. Before I hand over for members to decide how to proceed, I'll hand over to Vicky Johnston, the Council's legal advisor, just to comment further on that.
Thank you, Ms. Green.
Oh.
A question arises as to the implications for planning authorities when determining applications where an earlier permission has only been partially implemented, and granting and thereafter implementation of a new planning permission physically prevents that earlier planning permission being capable of being completed. Although we are not aware of any case law directly addressing this issue, our view is that the partially implemented permission does constitute a material consideration when determining the planning application before the LRB. The planning history of a site is one of the considerations specifically mentioned in Annex A, defining a material consideration of Planning Circular 3 of 2022, Development Management Procedures. Section 123 of the Town and Country Planning Scotland Act 1997 states, for the purposes of this Act, failure to comply with any condition or limitation subject to which the planning permission has been granted constitutes a breach of planning control. This is particularly so in this circumstance where the partially implemented permission is close to being fully implemented. Ultimately, it will be for members of the LRB as decision makers to determine what weight should be attached to the prospect of the remainder of the partially implemented permission being completed when determining the planning application before them today. Having particular regard to the implications there would be on residential amenity, the setting of the listed building and the character of the conservation area if amenity space and landscaping was not to be provided. As detailed in the LRB procedure note, in coming to a decision on the review before them, the LRB will need to weigh the development plan position against the other material considerations arising before deciding whether the development plan should or should not prevail in the circumstances. Thank you. I'll hand you back to Ms. Green.
Oh, Lucy, you're on mute.
Sorry, I'll continue and go through the rest of the plans before handing over. Okay, so this is showing the access into the into the two townhouses, and it also shows the window-to-window distances between the townhouses and the existing Bayview and the southern villa and Bayview. This was taken from the submissions of the applicant, and it just shows the windows in the side of Bayview and the wall. So you can see that's the rear extension there, and the windows in the side of the building. So this is the tree survey. So you can see the mature lime trees that are referred to in the report in this area here. It's not proposed to remove those. It's proposed to undertake works to effectively pollard those and trim the canopy. You can see the root protection areas on this plan. And that this is the remainder of the tree survey. I just enlarged the plan to show it a bit larger. So you can see the proposal to remove the trees in this area as well. And that's taken from the frontage on Queen's Road, just from Google Street View. And again, showing the site. So the site extends into this area as well. That's the trees to the rear that we propose to be removed. And this is showing listed buildings on Queen's Road. So the Bayview House at 86 is category C, and the others in green are category B. And it's showing the extent of the conservation area as well in the orangey red colour. So the reasons for refusal are that, this is a summary, the loss of outdoor amenity space for the residents of the 6 flats at Bayview, and the proposal would also prevent implementation of the landscaping condition. The impact of the 3 new dwellings on the setting of the listed building Bayview and the character of the conservation area, part of which is the prominent position of Bayview. The proposed houses would be of a scale not subservient to the existing Bayview or 88 Queen's Road to the west, and would disrupt the rhythm of buildings fronting onto Queen's Road. Also, the proposal was considered overdevelopment, with the number of houses, the size and positions, and the density being out of character with the area, which is characterised by large houses in large grounds. That there's insufficient quality garden for the southern villa due to the density proposed and overdevelopment of the site. That the southern villa would be overshadowed by mature trees along the frontage, which would have an amenity impact. There would be compromised residential amenity for the dwellings due to overlooking between the dwellings. That development within the root protection area of the 3 mature lime trees and within the zone of influence would result in future loss of the trees through damage and proximity overshadowing. And that the proposal would be contrary to policies on trees, design, amenity, residential areas, historic environment, and the guidance on the subdivision of residential curtilages and the setting of listed buildings. So a summary of the applicant's statement of reasons for seeking review. In terms of the amenity of residents of Bayview, it's stated that there would be 3 times the required open space provided, and that it's untrue that it's not private or usable. In terms of the landscaping condition and the implementation of that for the application relating to the 6 flats, it's not material that it couldn't be implemented, as this application would supersede previous consent. And I've just noted there that the current application site boundary does not include Bayview and the site frontage. It's further stated that there would be no unacceptable impact on the setting of listed Bayview. There's a heritage statement within the submissions which concludes that the design is sympathetic with the defining features of Bayview being retained. It's further stated that in terms of visual subservience, the proposed houses sit behind trees or at the rear of the site, and the site's well screened, and the layout is designed for space between the existing and new buildings. The rhythm of buildings on Queen's Road and the narrow proposed house. It's stated that the rhythm varies on Queen's Road, and that the plot would remain the widest on the street, as shown in the design statement and the sectional drawings. In terms of overdevelopment, the density and open space meet the planning guidance requirements, and that NPF 4 encourages densification, and this is a brownfield site. It's also stated that in terms of residential amenity for future residents, they have more than twice the required open space provided. And also that the development in the root protection areas of protected trees, the trees would be managed to enable retention, and they would remain under Bayview House control and would need permission from the council for works or removal. So I'll now hand back to members to decide how they wish to proceed, whether they have sufficient information or whether they wish for a site visit. Thanks.
Thank you very much. We now need to consider we have sufficient information in front of us today to take a decision on the application. Members, reminder, if you do not feel you have enough information to take that decision, you can request further written information to be provided, hearings to be arranged, or a site visit to be undertaken. We'll go around the room. Councillor Copeland. Oh, you're on mute.
Sorry about that. I'm happy to proceed today, but I do have a couple of questions.
That's fine. Thank you very much. Councillor Blake.
I think there's sufficient information to proceed.
Thank you very much. Councillor Bolton.
Yeah, I'm happy. I've been to actually have a look at the site again separately, so I'm content that I have the information required to determine the application. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I also agree we have sufficient information, so we will proceed. We'll now pass back to Ms Green, who will take us through the relevant policies and procedures. And you're on mute.
So these are the relevant policies from NPF 4. Which I'll go through in more detail in the following slides. And there's also the Historic Environment Policy on managing change in terms of settings, and the Scottish Historic Environment Policy. So first of all, policies 1 and 2 on the climate change and nature crises and mitigation, relevant to all applications, and all decisions should give significant weight to the climate and nature crises. And policy 3 on biodiversity. So for local developments, they should include appropriate measures to conserve, restore and enhance biodiversity. Policy 6 relates to trees, and I've included also the local development plan policy on trees and woodlands. And these are that no trees should be removed as part of a development proposal. Policy D1 on design and policy 14 are similar, with the 6 qualities of successful places. So the most relevant ones is healthy, pleasant, supporting attractive natural and built spaces, and designing for social interactions and recreational space, enjoyment of the outdoors. It's connected, distinctive, which relates to details of architectural styles, sustainable, and adaptable. And then policy on local living, which states that proposals would contribute to local living where they were within 20 minutes of various facilities within the local neighbourhood. So policy 16 on quality homes encourages the provision of those homes on sites allocated for residential use, and the site falls within a residential area under policy H1. And so these would encourage proposals for new residential uses with these 4 criteria, providing that they comply with these. So the first would be that they don't constitute overdevelopment, and that they do not have an adverse impact on residential amenity and the character and appearance of the surrounding area. And thirdly, do not result in the loss of open space, public open space. So these are the relevant policies from the local development plan, which I will go through in the following slides. Just in terms of amenity. So there will be the proposals should be designed to make the most of views. Sunlight and daylight are also relevant. Access to open space in terms of amenity. They would usually have a public face to a street to ensure natural surveillance, and facilities for refuse storage, ensuring external lighting, ensuring occupiers are afforded adequate levels of privacy, just picking out the most relevant points, and access to private and semi-private open space. Okay, so this is from the APG on subdivision and redevelopment of curtilages, and it has various criteria for consideration. So new dwellings must respect the established pattern of development formed by the relationships between buildings and their surroundings. The scale and massing of new dwellings should complement the scale of the surrounding properties. Densities of the surrounding area should be reflected in the development proposals for new and existing properties, with, as a general rule, no more than 1/3 of the site taken up. New dwellings should generally not project forward of established building lines. Distances between proposed and existing buildings should be similar to that predominating in the area, and the ridges and wall heads of new dwellings should be no higher. In the case of redevelopment of exceptionally large sites, if the form of development is not alien to the general pattern, density and character of dwellings in the area, it may be possible for detached houses to be built, which gain access from a new private driveway or new road. And then we have policy on landscape design, which encourages proposals to be designed within an effective and a functional landscape framework, with that being integrated early into the layout and design of the site. It's the policy on waste management, where all new developments should have space for the storage of waste. And then parking. The road section, the roads development management team were content with the level of parking provided on the site. And there's the character appraisal for Albine Place and Rubislaw conservation area, which is referred to in the report. So overall, the primacy of the development plan, with all applications to be determined in accordance with the development plan unless material considerations indicate otherwise. And in this case, the main considerations would be the principle of residential development on the site, the impact of the proposed development on residential amenity of the occupiers of Bayview House, the impact of the proposed development on the character and appearance of the surrounding area, which is the conservation area, the impact on the setting of the listed building at 86 Queen's Road, quality of residential amenity for the proposed developments, future occupiers, and the impact of the proposed development on the natural environment, including protected trees. So does the proposal comply with the development plan as a whole, or are there material considerations indicating otherwise? And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much for your presentation. Councillor Copeland.
Thank you, Camille. I've got a couple of questions, if I may. Are those lime trees the only one with TPOs, or any of the ones at the back, if any of them with TPOs on them?
I believe that the TPO covers the whole site. So let me just check that.
It's in a conservation area, so they are covered by a blanket TPO.
Yes.
Okay. Do we know how many trees would need to be removed?
Well, it's the trees to the rear of the site which are to be removed, and the survey sort of surveys them as a group. The TPO actually covers the front part of the site, but as Councillor Bolton said, it's a conservation area, so they're all protected. Yeah, so the proposal is not to remove the trees along the front.
Yeah, I saw that. It's the ones at the back I'm querying.
I can just pull up the survey and just check what it says exactly. Just hold on a moment.
My other question, if it helps, is the distance between the two townhouses at the back, and is it solid walls facing each other, or is it windows?
Okay, I'll show you the plans. I'm just.
So I couldn't make it because it was so small.
Yes, I'm going to share it in a different way, I think, because it's better the way that I normally share. Yeah, it's these cypress trees that would be removed. Each 24.
Okay.
Yeah, it doesn't. It refers to it as a hedge, so it doesn't actually give the number of trees. don't know if you can read that at all.
No, it's too small.
Yeah, it just gives the size. Says that they're in poor condition. The hedge has been topped in the past.
Yeah, okay.
They're on to number.
No, it's great. And the second question regarding the 2 townhouses.
Yeah. Let's go to the just go to the floor plans. So the windows are offset. Let me just share that again.
Yeah, what it was, I mean, they've got a shared access down to their garages, one on the right, one on the left. But what's the distance between the two buildings?
The distance between the two buildings.
Yeah. And so it's a shared access for the access to the garages.
Yeah. The distance is 7.9 meters between the two side elevations of the townhouses.
That's about 25 feet, thereabouts. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, sorry, my conversion is not, I work in meters.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you very much, Lizzie.
Okay.
Councillor Blake.
Thank you, convener. My question was the parking for the flats for Bayview House, is that to the front of the house on that bit of hard standing? And going back to that pink, there was obviously showing the different areas for the different buildings. So the flats was highlighted in pink. How much usable space is there between that kind of hard standing? I'm assuming that's where they park. Then how much space is there between that's flat before it starts sloping down?
So this area.
Yes.
See if there's a scale on here.
Yeah, and is that where they park in front of that, on that hard standing there?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah, so it would be this area. Well, that's the scale there is 5 meters for that. So I would say there's about 5 meters of flat grass, and then it slopes down.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Councillor Bolton.
Thank you. Back to the trees. In terms of the ones they were saying that says that are very close to the building, that they're going to pollard. Of course, that's a TPO, so I'm assuming they haven't got an advance approval. So this is just what they would want to do as opposed to what they can do. Is that correct?
Yes, they're out with the site, so yeah, they would. They don't have that TPO permission.
That's fine. That's all my questions. Thanks, convener.
Thank you very much. No questions from myself, so thank you. Therefore, in accordance with procedural notes circulated, the local review body will now discuss and decide the manner in which reviews are to proceed. I would highlight that all representations related to the case have been considered and taken into account. Members, any debate on this? At the moment, I am going in the lines of upholding officers' recommendations on this, but I'll quickly come to Councillor Bolton.
I totally agree with you, convener. I think the decision notice that we have before us is very well laid out and covers everything that would have concerned me. I don't think that those trees could be saved once they're pollarded if they got permission, and also the root base. I think the whole pattern of design, and I think the officer has nailed every point. So there's no point repeating it all, but totally agree with you. Thank you.
No, absolutely, Councillor Bolton. It's very the reason for decision has been very well laid out. Obviously, the impact on Bayview House in terms of the aspects and what they have around in terms of amenities, a big point for me, and especially legal's point as well in relation to the conditioning of the landscape and planning. The implementation on that is definitely a sticking point there for me as well. But we'll quickly go around the room and confirm with everyone else. Councillor Copeland. Councillor Copeland's on mute.
Sorry, but I totally agree with you. I think the officers have made the right decision here now, fully supported.
And last but not least at all, Councillor Blake.
I agree as well. I think the impact on the amenity of the Bayview House, and indeed each of the other houses, and the impact on the residential area, I think this is the right decision. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Johnson. It's not Vicky Johnson.
Yeah, thank you. Just to confirm, the reasons is just for the reasons as stated in the decision notice for everyone.
Yeah. Yes, it is. Yes. Okay. Thank you all. As the local review body is therefore unanimously agreed to uphold the officer's recommendations, the application has therefore been refused. The decision notice will be sent to the applicant or agent in the forthcoming days. Thank you very much, members. Councillor Bolton, I believe the last two applications are in your ward, so I think you'll be dropping off, although you're welcome to stay and observe today's proceedings.
I think I might stay and watch what's going on, but I'll obviously put my camera off. Thank you, Camilla.
Absolutely, and thanks very much for your participation this morning.
Okay, thank you.
So, turn to consideration of the second review in respect of the decision to refuse the application for the subdivision of existing few and erection of two semi-detached dwellings with associated car parking, hard landscaping and access at 19 South Avenue, Aberdeen, AB 159LQ, planning reference 250379. Again, we'll pass back to the planning advisor in attendance, Ms. Lucy Green, who will take us through a brief description of the application proposal and a reminder of the reasons why the application was refused.
Thank you. I'll just share my slides. Okay, this is a request for review into the refusal of the application for subdivision of existing few at 19 South Avenue. And it was submitted with all the necessary information within the time limit. The applicant stated on the notice of review that there are no new matters been raised. And in terms of procedure, they were content that it may proceed on the basis of the information submitted. So I'll provide some background information before handing back for members to decide how to proceed. So this is the site lying on the corner of South Avenue here and North Deeside Road. It was previously the site of a 1.5-storey house that was demolished in 2013. And this is just taken from Google Street View showing the site here. And and the front north elevation of the proposed house, which would be 1.5 stories onto the to the north elevation onto North Deeside Road. And that's shown without the proposed reinstatement of some of the boundary wall along the front, but there's a further elevation which I'll show you, which includes the wall. For the south elevation, so this would be the two semi-detached houses. One of them would have this rear terrace with the obscured glazing, and this would be the westernmost house, which would be slightly different with accommodation at that level. And then the side elevations. So this is North Deeside Road up here. Now you can see the reinstatement of some of the boundary wall at 1.8 metres there. And this is cut through the site. So you can see in red, it's indicating where the wall would be along South Avenue, and how the ground is contoured down. So the front entrance would be here into the first floor level, if you like, with the ground floor level at garden level here. And that's showing the obscured glass panel, which is 1.6 metres high. The materials indicated here would be granite to this element at the front, off-white rough cast, and the cedral linings are shown in this vertical annotation. Doors and windows in aluminium clad dark grey. And so this is the elevation to the west side. And that's the side elevation showing the wall in place, and again the wall on the north elevation with the opening for car access to parking in the front. And then you can see the ridge level of the neighbouring dwelling there, number 21. And the site plan showing 2 semi-detached houses. They'd have parking to the front off North Deeside Road, a single front door, and then 2 front doors to each house, and the gardens to the rear. And this is the access into number 21. So you would enter at this level and then go down the steps to the main sort of living area, which is shown on this plan. The kitchen, dining and family areas at garden level. And then that's the upper floor plan. And then some illustrations from North Deeside Road, that's showing the wall reinstated, providing access to parking at the front, the existing house and existing flats. And again, taken from North Deeside Road, the corner of South Avenue. And a bit further along North Deeside Road. And then this is a cross section showing the granite wall that would be rebuilt. And there'd be buttresses installed just to stabilise it because of the lower ground level within the garden. And these are the visibility splays. So firstly, the visibility splay for vehicles coming out of South Avenue. And then for vehicles using the driveway to the houses. And I've added this slide in just to show the position of the previously approved house, which is the same as the current application. So that was a single house in this location. So the reason for refusal was the impact on the streetscape and visual amenity from North Deeside Road and South Avenue, and the character of and appearance of the area, with a detrimental impact on that. That the proposal would represent overdevelopment with narrow plots and parking and access onto North Deeside Road, which would accentuate the impact on of the scale and massing on the streetscape. So the consented approval had access from the rear rather than from North Deeside Road. Also, that it would be overdevelopment in terms of the plot size and subdivision, which would be inconsistent with the pattern of development and the character of the area. And that pattern being of long, spacious gardens and detached houses. Its further point is that the pattern of development and the character of the area are recognised by 4 reporters in appeals on this site, and that the proposal will be contrary to policies on design residential areas and the guidance on subdivision of curtilages. And also to add, in terms of consultation, the roads team stated that there was adequate parking and visibility displays. Environmental health had no objection, but requested a condition in terms of sound insulation. There was no objection from the waste team, and the community council objection is detailed in the report, but related to issues such as site size, the character of the area, the impact on number 21 South Avenue and Colts Court, that the proposal is a more intensive use than the approved single house, road safety concerns in terms of the risk of the access, and that the proposal is overbearing. And there were also 28 objections, as detailed in the report. For the applicant's statement, I've summarised it on this slide. It notes that there's an extant permission for a house of over 500 square metres, which is the house I showed you on the slide just a minute ago. That the case officer accepted that the massing and siting of the current proposal are similar to the application that was approved and could be implemented on the site. The applicant stated that the reporter's decisions were based on proposals that are dissimilar to this application, that the materials are acceptable, that there's no detrimental impact on the neighbours with the measures proposed, that the proposed houses would have acceptable level of amenity in terms of sunlight, daylight, privacy and garden space, that it's a sustainable and efficient use of land which would comply with the local development plan, that the roads team are content with visibility for vehicles exiting the parking due to the wall repositioning, that viability of the site has not been taken into account in terms of the proposal for 2 houses, that the site has lain vacant and is an eyesore for 12 years, that the objections are mainly to the massing of the proposal, which is similar to the approval for the single house. They point out that there's a housing crisis and there's a need for low energy properties, that they were advised by the planning department to pursue the semi-detached scheme, and that there's a new granite wall proposed and planting which would improve the streetscape. So at this point, I'll hand back to members to decide how to proceed.
Thank you very much. We now need to consider we have sufficient information in front of us today to take a decision on the application. Members, reminder, if you do not feel you have enough information to take a decision, you can request further information to be provided, hearings to be arranged, or a site visit to be undertaken. At the moment, I'm happy to proceed, but we'll quickly go around the room. Councillor Copeland.
I agree with you, Convener. Happy to proceed today.
Thank you very much. Councillor Blake.
I'm happy to proceed. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you very much. As members feel that we have sufficient information, we'll now pass back to Ms Green, who will take us through the relevant policies and considerations for this review.
Thank you, convener. I'll share the policies. So these are the relevant policies within NPF 4, which I will go through on the following slides, and policies from the local development plan as well. I've tried to put together the policies on particular subjects. So first of all, the two policies 1 and 2 from NPF 4 on the climate crises and nature crises. As we mentioned previously, all decisions should give significant weight to the climate and nature crises. And also policy 3 on biodiversity, where proposals for local development should include appropriate measures to conserve, restore and enhance biodiversity. So in terms of policies for quality homes and residential areas, policy 16 in NPF 4 encourages the provision of high quality homes in the right locations, and the site is zoned within policy R1 in the LDP. So within existing residential areas, proposals for new residential development would be approved in principle if they don't constitute overdevelopment and they don't have an adverse impact on residential amenity and the character and appearance of the areas, and also don't result in the loss of open space. Design policies, which policy D1 in the local plan and policy 14 in NPF 4 are similar, with the 6 qualities of successful places, which are outlined there. So I suppose the relevant ones are being distinctive in terms of the local architectural styles, pleasant in relation to interaction with natural and built spaces. Policies on waste management in both NPF 4 and the local development plan just require adequate measures for storage of waste. And policies on sustainable transport, this is from NPF 4, state that development proposals will be supported where they are accessible by active travel and public transport links. And then policy 15 on local living encourages the provision of residential uses where they are accessible within a 20-minute neighbourhoods to community facilities. And also policies on surface water drainage are relevant here, with all new developments being required to incorporate sustainable urban drainage systems to manage surface water. And also policy 23 in terms of noise levels, and similarly from the local development plan, occupiers of proposed development should be protected from noise from outside the development. And then policy D2 on amenity. So there are several factors to take into account. Siting in order to optimize views, sunlight, daylighting, privacy, noise, the outlook for proposed occupiers of proposed houses, public face to the street, and active street frontages. Adequate internal and external amenity space. And then also landscape design policy from the local development plan. So landscape design should be integrated early on into the layout and design of the site. There's also policy on low and zero carbon buildings and water efficiency measures being incorporated into new dwellings. And finally, policy on parking. And the proposal complies with the requirements of the transport and accessibility guidance in terms of parking standards. So the planning guidance on subdivision and redevelopment of curtilages has various guidelines and principles which should be followed. So firstly, new dwellings should respect the established pattern of development within the area and the relationship between buildings and their surrounding spaces. Scale and massing of any new dwellings should complement the scale of surrounding properties. The density of the surrounding area should be reflected in proposals. And then there's the general guide that no more than a third of the site area should be built upon. New dwellings should generally not project forward of an established building line. Also, that the distance between proposed dwellings and proposed and existing dwellings should be similar to that predominating in the area, and that ridges and wall heads should be no higher than those of adjoining dwellings. So finally, evaluation should be in terms of the development plan policies unless material considerations indicate otherwise. And for this particular case, the main considerations are the impacts on the character and appearance of the area, whether this constitutes overdevelopment, does it adversely impact on residential amenity, and does it adversely impact on road safety? And overall, does the proposal comply with the development plan, or are there material considerations weighing for or against the proposal? And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much for your presentation. Any questions, members? Councillor Blake.
Thank you. Sorry, I couldn't find my raise hand function there. Can I ask about the front door? So is the front door designed to look as if it's just one front door? Is there only one front door for the two properties?
Yes, the way that it works is there's one single front door, and then once you go into a communal hall, there are separate front doors.
Right. Okay. And the whole of the front essentially is going to be car parking spaces.
Yeah, there is a small area of landscaping, I think, but yes, pretty much.
Yes. And is that common on other properties across that area along the streetscape?
Well, we can look at the overhead map. I mean, a lot of them are accessed from the rear.
Yes, okay.
There are some flats further up that have car parking onto the street, but if I just pull up the overhead. Share it. So this is the site.
Yes.
Obviously, these have access from the rear. That was the flats I was referring to with parking. That may be a less usual situation. There's some garages.
Mm-hmm. Yes, okay.
Driveways. Just show you the other way, just so. Yeah, they're flats.
Yeah, okay. That's fine. And some of the comments mentioned some dispute about the border, the border at the back.
Yes, that's this area down here.
Okay.
I mean, the area proposed as garden curtilage is all within the main area of the site.
Right, okay.
So we would accept the certificates at face value.
Okay.
It doesn't affect the actual proposal in terms of the garden ground.
Okay. Okay. That's fine. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any further questions? Councillor Copeland, anything? Thank you very much. Therefore, in accordance with the procedural note circulated, the local review body will now discuss and decide the manner in which review is to proceed. I would highlight that all representations relating to the case have been considered and taken into account. I am minded at this moment to uphold officer's recommendations. It's clearly been assessed in the documents that we've received in front of us. The officer does go into a considerable amount of information to why this one is being refused, but we'll take other councillors in. Councillor Blake.
Convener, yes, I would be minded to uphold this one as well. I do think it would have an impact on the streetscape. It does constitute overdevelopment of the site. And I also think that there is a potential impact on road safety. We are talking about 4 cars potentially going on to North Deeside Road, where we have opposite a community centre where there's actually often parked cars. In fact, there's always parked cars the other side of the road from this junction. So that would also concern me. So I'm happy to uphold.
Thank you very much, Councillor Copeland.
Yes, I'm happy to go with you both. I think the officers have nailed it, quite frankly, and I think I don't need to say any more. I think it's well covered. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Therefore, the local review body has therefore agreed to unanimously uphold the decision of the appointed officer.
Convener, just to
Yes.
confirm again, is that again just for the reasons as provided by the planning officer originally?
Absolutely. Thank you very much. Therefore, the application is therefore refused. Like I say, the officers will send out the decision notice in the next coming days. Just before we start, I'll wait for Councillor Copeland to reappear. And here he goes. Thank you very much. So, turning to consideration of the third review in respect of a decision to refuse the application for the change of use to non-domestic area of her standing to residential garden ground, erection of retirement dwelling house with associated garden at South Lass Farm, Contlaw Road, Aberdeen AB 130ES, planning references 250702. We'll now pass back to Lucy to take us through today's application.
Thank you, Convener. Just before I begin, there was an email sent out with 2 documents that had been set to sensitive on the website, and I was just wondering if members had had chance to look at those.
I have indeed. Councillor Copeland's indicating that he has. Councillor Blake?
I am not aware of these. When was this sent out? Sorry. I was away on Friday, if it came out on Friday.
No, it was just this morning.
Just
No,
this morning.
I haven't. I'm sorry, I haven't read that. So,
well, they were property title and a labour requirements report
Right.
that are referred to.
okay.
The report is not, it's 8 pages.
Right.
I don't know if you want to.
Okay.
Councillor
Vicky
Blake, do you want-
Johnston may have something
Yeah, if you
to
want,
add there.
check your emails and make sure you have
Yeah.
received those. And if you want time to read those, we can easily sit for 5 minutes. We have a drift through those if you want.
I sent it at 9:57 this morning, Councillor Blake.
You're on mute at the moment, Councillor Blake. Do you want 5 minutes of a recess to read those? Yes, okay, no worries.
Yes,
we'll take
please.
we'll take a 5-minute recess then. Thank you very much. Councillor Blake, are you happy?
Yes, that's fine. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll just get Lucy back on. There we go. Thank you very much, all. I think we're all content to proceed.
I'll just share my presentation. Okay, so this is a review into the refusal of the application for the change of use of a non-domestic area of hard standing to residential garden ground, and also the erection of a retirement dwelling house with associated garden at South Last Farm, Contlaw Road. And the review was submitted with all the necessary information within the time limit, and the applicant has indicated that there are new matters raised in the review. However, these do relate to points raised in the report of handling, so they're not considered to be new in terms of the legislation. In terms of the procedure by which the review will be conducted, the applicant is happy to proceed on the basis of the information submitted. So I'll provide some background information before handing back for members to decide whether they have enough information to proceed. So this first slide shows the site just here in relation to Cooter to the south, and the AWPR there. And the farm itself is up here. And this again is the site shown just here, with that's the farm, and then this is the other land in the applicant's ownership. And I've just added in here the site, marked the site within the local plan proposals map, so it's just here within the green belt. And then the actual site plan outlined in red there, with the blue areas land within control of the applicant. So this is an application for planning permission in principle. So the house and garden would be located on this area, subject to further applications if this one were to be approved. And these are photographs taken from the applicant's submission. So this one's looking west, with this being the proposed house site. And also looking south across the proposed site of the house. I've just included this because the whole issue of flooding was mentioned. And this is the site here. So, a very small proportion of it is affected by the surface water flooding. The reasons for refusal, which are stated in full on this slide, are that the proposed site for the house would not meet any of the exceptional criteria for acceptable development under Greenbelt policy in the local development plan. It's not required for the operation of the farm, and in particular fails to meet criterion A of the aforementioned policy, which is the exceptions to the general presumption against development in the Greenbelt. As the Aberdeen Local Development Plan has been adopted more recently than NPF 4, it prevails in the event of any incompatibility between the two plans. Notwithstanding, the application does not meet the requirements for proposed retirement dwellings set out in Policy 8, Greenbelts in NPF 4, or Policy 17 on rural homes, as it has not been clearly demonstrated that there is no suitable alternative accommodation available. As a result, the application further does not comply with policy 16 on quality homes. And in summary, there are no policies in the statutory development plan which support the application in principle. And the second reason is that the application site is partially at risk of surface water flooding, and the proposal doesn't fall within any of the categories in policy 22 where such development may be supported. However, it does also state that these issues may be overcome with additional assessment. So now to cover the applicant's case in summary. The running of the farm would be passed down a generation with the requirement for the retiring farmer to remain on site to pass on knowledge. Secondly, the personal ties of the farmer to the land and also to the community. Also, the proposal is associated with agriculture in terms of the Greenbelt and NPF 4 makes allowance for retiring farmers. The LDP is urban-centric. Cottages nearby are unsuitable or not accessible, and also they provide income for the farm. The site is also close to the farm hub to allow easy access for work and in an area not used for agriculture. And it states that farmers do not fully retire, with some further information on that. It states that the location doesn't require new road construction, so that's in its favour. Also that it's accessible by cycling and walking. The applicant also states that the site is very close to Aberdeenshire, where the planning policy would allow, in principle, for a retirement house for succession planning. It also states there are no objections from consultees, and there's one objection from a DICE resident. It states that the landform is undulating and includes scattered farmsteads, and also refers to supporting the mental health of farmers being important, with the suicide rate being high. So there were some further points from the applicant's case. They dispute that private wastewater is not permitted by planning policy and guidance as a whole. It's stated that the location is not feasible for public or active travel. However, an additional house would reduce commuting to the farm. It's stated that the house would be of high quality and that the farm is a viable holding. And finally, that flooding can be addressed by condition, and the SEPA flood maps relates to the pond being shown on the flood maps, and drainage has been accepted. So at this point, I'll hand back for members to decide if they have enough information to proceed.
Thank you very much. I have enough information to proceed, but we'll quickly go around the room. Councillor Copeland.
Yes, proceed.
Thank you very much. Councillor Blake.
Yes, proceed as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Therefore, we'll pass back to Lucy, who will take us through the remainder of the application.
Thank you. So these are all the relevant policies in NPF 4, and I'll go through them on the following slides. And also the relevant policies from the local development plan, the Aberdeen planning guidance on amenity, etc., other national policies, and the urban and rural classification, which is also referred to in the report of handling. So firstly, policies 1 and 2 on the climate and nature crises, with all decisions giving significant weight to those, and climate mitigation. And also biodiversity policy, whereby local developments should include appropriate measures to conserve, restore and enhance biodiversity. And this is a planning permission in principle, so that would need to form part of the conditions if the application were to be approved. So for policy 8 from NPF 4, the policy outcomes relate to the character landscape and also the identity of settlements being protected. And it states that development proposals within the Greenbelt will only be supported if they fall within a range of criteria. And those include development associated with agriculture, residential accommodation required and designed for key workers within the immediate vicinity of their place of employment, where the presence of a worker is essential, or retired workers where there is no suitable alternative accommodation available. And also where the following requirements should be met. Reasons why the Greenbelt location is essential and why it can't be located on an alternative site. Providing that the purpose of the Greenbelt at that location is not undermined. That the proposal is compatible with the surrounding established countryside and landscape. That it's designed to ensure it's of appropriate scale, massing and external appearance. And also that there would be no significant long-term impacts on the environmental quality of the Greenbelt. So that's NPF4 Greenbelt policy. The local plan Greenbelt policy is similar in that it has a general presumption against development, but it does not have an exception in terms of retirement houses. So these are the exceptions. The most relevant one is A, directly associated with agriculture. None of the others are particularly relevant in this case. I'm just looking at the proposal at the policy for quality homes from NPF4. This encourages the provision of high quality, sustainable homes in the right locations. And where there are proposals for new homes on land not allocated for housing within the LDP, these are the criteria for consideration. The first one's not particularly relevant where it's just one house. Point 2, the proposal should be consistent with the plan's spatial strategy and other relevant policies. And then point 3 refers to delivery of housing sites within the local plan. The proposal being consistent with policy on rural homes, or the proposal being small scale within an existing settlement boundary. And then policy 17 on rural homes. This also looks for high quality homes, rural homes in the right locations. So it states that development proposals for new homes in rural areas will be supported where the development is suitably scaled, sited and designed. And there is reference here to single home for retirement succession of a viable farm holding. And then it further states development proposals for new homes in rural areas will consider how the development will contribute towards local living and take into account identified local housing needs, economic considerations and transport needs. So these are the policies on sustainable transport in NPF4 and the local development plan, both similar in that they support development where it's accessible by public transport or active travel. And similarly, the policy on local living in 20-minute neighbourhoods, where development proposals are welcomed where they contribute to local living. So this is the policy 22 on flood risk from NPF4. And it would not normally support development in flood risk areas, other than if it falls within these exceptions, essential infrastructure, water compatible uses, etc. And then there are some criteria where there is development within a flood risk area. and so these criteria would be relevant. So it's looking at floor levels in terms of risk, flood risk, and also that you wouldn't create islands of development, that you wouldn't increase the risk of surface water flooding to others or itself be at risk, and that you would manage all surface water through sustainable urban drainage systems. And this is the policy from the local development plan, which is similar in terms of the flood risk being passed on to other sites, and also seeking sustainable urban drainage systems. So policy 23 from NPF 4 is relevant in terms of the consultation to the health and safety executive and protecting people and places from environmental harm. So that was the consultation in respect of the quarry. It's actually an advised consultation rather than one of the required ones. And policy from the LDP, which is similar in terms of hazardous sites nearby. And then the local development plan and NPF4 policies on waste and the requirement to accommodate storage of waste on the site. This is policy that relates to landscape setting and development in terms of its impact on the character of the surrounding landscape. So finally, evaluation in terms of the development plan with all applications being determined in accordance with the development plan policies unless material considerations indicate otherwise. And the basis for the decision in this case, would the proposals comply with the zoning policy for the green belt and also the change of use of agricultural land? Thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Any questions, members? Councillor Copeland.
Yeah, thank you, Convener. Just a quick question. If we were minded to grant this application, can we put a condition on that any occupancy must have a connection to the working farm? I'm thinking about future proofing it that should it need to change hands, there has to be a connection to the farm. Can we do that?
It's not advised to do that. It did used to be something that was done, but it's found not to be enforceable. So it's not advised, I'm afraid. And same with a personal condition.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any further questions, Councillor Blake? Nope. There's nothing from me at this time. Therefore, thank you very much for your presentation. So in accordance with the procedural note circulated, the local review body will now discuss and decide the manner in which the review is to proceed. I would highlight that all representations relating to the case have been considered and taken into account. At the moment, where I'm at the moment, in terms of policy 17, in terms of rural homes, I believe this is supported in terms of retirement succession, will contribute to the ongoing nature of the farm. Policy 8, in terms of Greenbelt, I believe this will be minimal impact. I think the SAC SAC report has been quite clear that we've had this morning in relation to the connection with the farm. Policy 22 in terms of flood, you know, this will be dealt with under a further assessment with drainage plans submitted at the time when the application comes forward for the farmhouse, noting that this is a planning permission in the principle. Therefore, we'll go around the room, see if anyone wants to add anything further in or is otherwise minded. Councillor Blake.
Thank you, convener. Yes, I am minded to also to support you and to overturn. I very much feel that there is it is associated with agricultural. There is a need to support succession planning within our rural community, and I don't believe it will have a visual impact. There's a number of scattered houses in that area, so I do feel that it meets policy 8 of NPF4 and policy 17 to do with rural homes. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Copeland.
Thank you, and I would support granting this, overturning the officer's position. I think, you know, we have to take a common sense approach to these things. Although our local development plan is primarily based on urban dwellings, being a city authority, we have to consider the needs of a rural community as well. And I think what we have here is an applicant who is looking at the future and the business. Let's not forget it's a business, it's a farm, and the continuity. And I think we have to take that in consideration when we're judging this. I think Councillor Blake summed it up quite nicely, that the rural community got different, need to be looked at. Policy 17 recognises that, and I think policy 8 as well. So yes, I'm very happy to support an application. It's isolated enough not to affect anybody else. So for that point of view, yes, happy to overturn our decision here and grant this application in principle.
Thank you very much. As the local review body has therefore agreed to overturn the decision of the appointed officer, we now need to consider whether any conditions should be attached to the approval of the application. Lucy, just in relation to conditions regarding flooding, are we happy to accept that one? And if there is any others that you deem necessary?
Yes, it would. Because it's planning permission in principle, it would require further applications for matters specified in conditions. So there would be a standard condition about relating to timing, etc., that we would put on usually. Then obviously the design, layout, siting of the house, the access, materials, landscaping of the site and biodiversity, sustainable urban drainage to address that surface water flooding issue. Site levels, which would come into the design condition as well. Yeah, those are the ones I would suggest.
Perfect. I'm seeing nodding heads, so we are happy to agree those conditions. Thank you very much. Please note a decision notice from today's meeting will be issued to the applicant agents in the forthcoming days. Thank you very much, members. That brings us to the end of today's committee meeting. Thank you to Lucy and Mark and to everyone who has observed. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.